5 o'clock in the morning, a winter Tuesday in 1954. Before the sun, before the coffee has even cooled in the thermos, a man in steel-toed boots and a canvas coat steps out into the dark and carries a dented metal lunch pail down a frozen street toward the mill. The night shift smoke still hangs orange over the river. He does not hurry, he does not complain. He will give that mill 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, for the next 40 years, and he will never once call it a sacrifice. He will never call it anything at all. This is the code every working man lived by. Rules nobody printed, rules nobody questioned, rules almost nobody says out loud anymore. They built the strongest middle class the world has ever seen, and they wore the men who followed them down to the bone. These are 25 of them, counting down to the one rule his son only understood at the graveside.
Before we begin, 3 of these will stop you cold. Rule number 20 could start a strike and end a friendship. Rule number 13 was the bargain that cost these men everything they had. And rule number 1 is the only thing he left behind that his son could not sell, spend, or replace. If you had a father like this, or you wish you had, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last 5 rules are the ones that matter most. And a word before we count. If what you are about to hear sounds familiar, if your father taught you any of this, or if you wish he had, we have collected 10 of the most important of these lessons into a small book called The Forgotten Father Code, 10 timeless lessons American dads taught their sons. The link is in the description. It will outlast the man who reads it. Rule number 25 is the first one every man on the floor ever learned, and it is the simplest there is. You show up. Sick, hungover, snowed in to the windowsills, you show up. In 1954, there was no personal day, no calling in, no doctor's note for a Monday morning. The man who missed a shift was the man they remembered when the layoffs came. Today, we treat showing up like a virtue. To him, it was just the rent you paid on the right to call yourself a working man. Rule number 24 says the whistle owns the clock, not you. Early was on time, and on time was already late. He stood at his station with his gloves on before the horn ever blew, because the line did not wait for a man, and a man who made the line wait did not stay a man with a job for long. Rule number 23 holds that you never walk past a job that needs doing just because it isn't yours. A loose bolt, a spill, a green kid buckling under a load, you stopped, because on that floor, one man's undone work was every man's danger. He carried it home, too. He never could drive past a stranded car on the shoulder without pulling over. Rule number 22, he'd say, with a wrench already in his hand. Take care of your tools, and they will take care of your family. His were wiped down, oiled, and laid in their order every single night. And a tool you borrowed came back cleaner than it left. That was how a working man said thank you without using any words. Rule number 21 is to be a man who can be counted on. Your word on the floor was worth more than your paycheck, because the paycheck could be cut, and your word could not. The man whose "I've got it" actually meant he had it. That was the man who got the overtime, the promotion, and the quiet respect of every other man on the line. Rule number 20 is the one that could start a strike. The union card is sacred, and you do not cross a picket line. Not for any money, not ever. In the mid-1950s, better than 1 American worker in 3 carried that card. Today, it is fewer than 1 in 10. Solidarity was not politics to him, it was survival. And the man who crossed that line ate his lunch alone for the rest of his working life. Rule number 19 tells you to learn every job on the line. The man who could run any station was the last man they cut when the orders dried up, and he did not hoard what he knew. He taught the kid coming up behind him, because a crew was only ever as strong as its weakest pair of hands. Rule number 18 is that you do not complain about the work, because the work is why your children eat. The heat, the noise, the back that locked up every January, he swallowed all of it. Not because he couldn't feel it, but because complaining never moved a single ton of steel, and feeding 4 kids did. Rule number 17 is the one the old hands drilled into the young ones. Pace yourself, because the shift is long and the body is the only one you are ever issued. The Federal Safety Administration did not exist until 1971.
For most of his career, the only thing between a man and a missing hand was another man's good advice. Hurt was part of the job, crippled was carelessness. Rule number 16 says to put something by for the company's bad year, because it is always coming. He had lived through enough layoffs to never once trust a good stretch. There was cash in a coffee can, a garden out back, and a deep suspicion of anything bought on credit. He saved like the layoff was already on the calendar, because sooner or later, it always was. Rule number 15 he practiced at the corner tavern after the late shift. A man buys his round when he can, and never lets on when he can't. Pride was cheap to protect and ruinous to lose. You stood your round, you stood your ground, and you never let another man cover you unless you had already quietly covered him. Rule number 14 is that your handshake closes the deal. A contract is for men who do not trust each other. He bought cars, borrowed money, and hired help on a handshake and a look in the eye. The paper, if there was any at all, only wrote down what two honest men had already settled between them. Which brings us to rule number 13, and the bargain hiding underneath every other rule on this list. The work was hard. Often it was brutal. It would use his body up by 60 and hand him a pension and a ruined back to enjoy it with. But the work was his. It was honest. And it made him a man who owed nothing to anyone and bowed to no one alive. That was the trade he made, his body for his dignity. And he made it every morning without once being asked. Everything you have heard so far is how he survived the floor. Everything left on this list is what he carried home to you. Rule number 12 is that he provided and he never explained. The paycheck set down on the kitchen table on a Friday evening said everything he could not put into words. He did not tell you that he loved you. He told you there was a roof and food on the table and shoes that fit, and he expected all of that to be heard loud and clear. Rule number 11 holds that whatever the shift did to him, the family ate together. 6 o'clock, hands washed, elbows off the table. It might have been the only hour of the day he was not selling to somebody else, and he spent it watching you eat. The family supper has been shrinking for 50 years now. In his house, it was not up for discussion. Rule number 10 is that you respect your mother's house. Boots off at the door, hat off at the table, your mouth respectful or closed. He would let a great deal slide, but disrespect aimed at your mother would bring him up out of that chair faster than anything else on this earth. Rule number 9 says you do not discuss money in front of the children, but they learned the worth of $1 by watching him earn it. You saw the early alarm. You saw the double shift before Christmas. You saw the way he counted out the bills, slow and deliberate. He never once lectured you about money. He simply let you watch exactly what it cost. Rule number 8 is the heaviest one he carried. A man does not cry, does not quit, and does not air the family's business. He carries it. We understand more today about what all that swallowing costs a man, and it is fair to say this rule broke as many as it built. But understand what he meant by it. He had decided the weight would stop with him so that it would never come to rest on you. Rule number 7 is that you finish what you start. The fence, the engine, the argument, the meal. A half-built thing in his yard was an embarrassment, and a half-kept promise was something worse. He did not start a great many things, but what he started, he finished, long after the finishing had stopped being any fun at all. Rule number 6 is that loyalty is everything, to your family, your crew, your neighborhood. You do not rat, and you do not run. The friends he made on that line he kept for 50 years. He would hand a neighbor his last $20 and his whole Saturday afternoon, and never once mention either again. Rule number 5 tells you to look a man in the eye, give him a firm hand, and call him sir until he tells you otherwise. He could read a man in a single handshake. Too soft, and you were hiding something. Too hard, and you were proving something. The right grip said, I am honest, I am not afraid of you, and I will expect the very same from you. Rule number 4 is to be useful. A man who can fix his own car, patch his own roof, and solve his own problems is never truly a poor man. He had a tool for everything and a workaround for the rest. He wanted you to need no one, not because he was cold, but because he knew he would not always be there to do it for you.
Rule number 3 is that your word is your bond, and a man who breaks it is finished in this town. He paid his debts early, kept his appointments to the minute, and did exactly what he said he would do. In a world that came before the credit score, a man's reputation was his credit, and he guarded yours before you even knew you had one.
Rule number 2 is to leave it better than you found it. The work site, the house, the boy. He swept up before he clocked out. He fixed the step at the rented house he would never own. And he poured every last thing he had into the one thing he would leave behind that truly mattered, and that was you.
Which leaves rule number 1, the rule his son only understood at the very end. At the funeral, the grown son took his father's hand one last time, and he felt it. 40 years of work packed into those calluses. A lifetime of 5 a.m. mornings written into a single weathered palm. And he finally understood. His father had never said the words "I love you" because he had been saying it every morning before sunrise for 40 years. The lunch pail by the door was the whole sentence. The early alarm was the whole sentence. The man himself was the whole sentence. And his son had spent an entire lifetime learning, too late, how to read it. The world that made these men is mostly gone now. The mills shuttered or sailed overseas. The union card that 1 worker in 3 once carried belongs today to fewer than 1 in 10. The 40-year job became the 4-year contract. The gold watch became a cardboard box and a long walk to the parking lot. And the sons they raised in all that silence grew up to wonder why their fathers had felt so far away. But it was never distance. It was a man saying, in the only language he had been given, the early alarm, the aching back, the full plate every Friday, I would do anything for you, and I will never once say so out loud. That was the code. That was the whole of it. We have collected 10 of these lessons, the ones every American father of every neighborhood and every name used to give his son, into a small book called The Forgotten Father Code. 10 timeless lessons American dads taught their sons. 10 chapters, vintage-inspired design, instant download. The link is in the description below this video and pinned in the comments. We made it for the man who watched this whole video and recognized something he had not heard in a long time. We made it for the father who wants to give his son something to hold. So here is the only homework. Pick one of these 25, just one, and do it tonight, for the man who taught it to you or for the man you still mean to become. Some of these fathers never once heard the words thank you. Maybe tonight we can finally say them. And tell me in the comments, what did your father do for a living, and which of these rules was his? I will read every single one. This is what dads knew. Pick one. Pick it tonight.